Ever since the first game that was released in the series, Bomberman has continued to blow players away with its chaotic gameplay and manic multiplayer modes, making it a true classic franchise in the eyes of many gamers. Because of how popular the games would become in the 80s and 90s, this inspired a plethora of spin-offs and portable games to be released alongside the mainline entries, to the point now where there are over 60 games in the series. And on that note, we thought that we would take a look at the top 10 best Bomberman games to have ever been released. But just before we do go into the video, if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10 videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. And with all that said, let's just get straight into it. These are our top 10 best Bomberman games to have ever been released. Number 10, Bomberman. With over 60 games under its belt, the Bomberman franchise has come a long way since its beginnings, and yet it's hard not to appreciate the old-timey charm of this classic game that looks like something you'd find next to Minesweeper and Solitaire on the Windows XP. Bomberman's simple gameplay and timeless appeal makes playing this antique title just as fun as if you were playing it back in the day. Number 9, Bomberman Max. Released on the Gameboy Color, this game had the single player aspect very flashed out, with 100 complex stages and optional objectives that you could complete. This was also the very first appearance of Bomberman's ally Max, who's the protagonist for the Red Challenger version of the game, while the OG Bomber stars in the Blue Champion one. Number 8, Bomberman 64. Considering the immense success of Super Mario 64, received upon its release in 1996, it was only a matter of time until one of the other gaming's biggest mascots also took the leap into full realized 3D gameplay. The result was somewhat a bit of a mixed bag, but still a beloved entry in the Bomberman series nonetheless. Bomberman 64 actually puts a lot more focus onto its story in comparison to its previous iterations, as Bomberman is tasked with hopping between multiple unique worlds to defeat the mysterious space pirate Altair and his underlings. The extra features such as being able to pump up bombs to make them even more explosive definitely helps the game stand out, but the unreliable camera angle and unresponsive controls do dampen the enjoyment of this otherwise underrated gem. Number 7, Bomberman Tournament. Many Bomberman games follow a similar pattern of having single player mode, which is largely overshadowed by the multiplayer, with the best example of this being Bomberman Tournament for the Game Boy Advance. The retro design of the arenas gives this game a real charm that throws it back to its roots, but the addition of numerous new power-ups that would appear at random made the game truly addicting and a real joy to play with friends. The single player quest mode is still a worthy playthrough, especially because it mixes elements of Zelda and Pokemon to make it a truly unique experience for this series. But it can still feel a little out of place, considering the fact that many players related to Bomberman with puzzle-based fast-paced action. Number 6, Bomberman DS. While developing Bomberman for the Nintendo DS, developer Ubisoft began making some pretty big claims about what was going to be included in the package, one of which was that the single player was going to feature a staggering 100 stages, and to the surprise of many people this actually turned out to be true. Along a fantastic single player experience, Bomberman for the DS also offers an incredibly fun and addictive multiplayer mode, where up to 8 friends could duke it out over wireless play. There are also a variety of different rules that can be applied to certain stages. Some examples of these include Tiebreak, where pressure blocks will gradually start filling in after a certain amount of time, and Revenge, which dictates whether or not a player defeated can throw bombs at others who are still alive. Number 5, Bomberman Party Edition. After a few disappointing entries on the Nintendo 64, it looked like the Bomberman series might have finally run out of steam, but the doubters were proved wrong when Bomberman Party Edition arrived for the Sony PlayStation in the year 2000. While the game had been slowly steering away from top-down perspective that had become so synonymous with the franchise, Bomberman Party Edition brought this back while also providing one of the most varied multiplayer offerings of its time. The game featured over 20 stages which were split up into beginner, normal, and advanced difficulties, and there was also a wide cast of quirky characters to choose from, including the Hammer Bomber and Wild West inspired Bomber Kid. The single player mode though does let the game down a little bit, seeing as it's nothing more than just a remake of the Bomberman on the NES, but it still provides one of the best multiplayer packages in the series to this very day. Number 4, Bomberman Generation. Bomberman Generation might be the most unique game in the series with how it plays. Rather than going all in with a 3D top-down perspective, Generation merges both by giving players a clear view of the fully realized 3D Bomberman, without the camera angle getting stuck on any walls or waving around randomly. This game also contains a variety of puzzles that can sometimes take a lot of brainstorming to figure out, and additionally, the lack of mid-stage save features also means that players need to be on their A-game, especially when facing the incredibly intense Crush Bomber encounters. The multiplayer mode is also just as good this time around, and while the 8 stages can get a little bit repetitive after a while, the 5 available modes means there's still plenty of fun to be had. Number 3. Bomberman 93. Strategy has always been a core component of the Bomberman games. After all, they are essentially classed as puzzle games, but some in the series will put much less focus on this in order to make them as accessible as possible. Bomberman 93 doesn't take this route though, and instead could be classed as the most difficult and strategic game yet, with each of the 7 worlds providing an engaging challenge and plenty of brain teasers to keep the experience fresh. While the multiplayer mode only holds up to 5 people at a time, the random nature of the gameplay and the addition of the deadly skull blocks ensure that each match is manic, memorable, and very much fun when playing within a group. Due to the time that it came out though, the game also features a stripped back retro version, which leans into the charming aesthetics of Bomberman, especially since it allows characters and enemies to make some downright hilarious facial expressions. Number 2. Super Bomberman. At first glance, Super Bomberman can seem like a pretty generic game, especially due to the outdated graphics. But it's in the core gameplay where this game really shines, and truly feels like unlike anything else. Bomberman moves notably faster in this game, meaning that at times, players will be racing around a stage at blistering speeds, trying to drop down as many bombs as possible. The pacing of the single player mode is extremely well done, with each stage gradually building on the difficulty until a terrifying boss appears. That is, until before allowing the player to move on to the next area. Whether it's the arena style of the robot tournament ground, which features a large crowd of spectators, or the colourful and upbeat aesthetics of the robot amusement park, these fresh and unique designs ensure the game never becomes stale or predictable. Number 1. Saturn Bomberman. Saturn Bomberman has become somewhat of a cult classic, considered by many to be the greatest multiplayer game ever made. There's so much to love about this entry, from the 10-player functionality to the incredibly colourful stages, or even the co-op story mode. It's a game packed full of replayability, which is often considered to be the pinnacle of the series. In terms of local multiplayer, Saturn Bomberman really is the best in the series, allowing a room of players to crowd around a single TV, all desperately trying to blow each other up, while also taking advantage of the new power-ups such as the Speedy Dinosaur. Upon booting up Saturn Bomberman and hopping into a few games, it's incredibly easy to see why many people would consider it to be one of the greatest games ever made for the Sega Saturn. A truly thrilling multiplayer experience that the series is yet to top. And so there you pretty much have it. Those were our top 10 best Bomberman games to have ever been released of all time. So what did you think of our list? Do you feel that there was a Bomberman game missing? Or perhaps that there's a different order that you would have placed the games in? If so, do let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. And of course, not forgetting that if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10 videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. I'll also leave some more top 10s at the end of this video if you would like to check them out. Thanks very much for watching guys, and I will see you all next time.